Hello everybody and welcome to my review of Raging Bull, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. So, recently one of my subscribers, Jack McCullough, requested that I review this movie. And obviously because I'd requested him to review the Hobbit trilogy. So, I'm finally going to honour his request and review this film. So, basically, the story of this movie is that it centres around this real-life boxer known as Jake LaMotta and his journey through his life, basically. It's basically kind of like a biographical account of his life, visually. And basically, it's about him destroying his life in the ring and his life outside the ring. That's all I'm going to say on the plot. So, Raging Bull. I know you're waiting for this, Jack. So, what do I think of the movie? Drumroll. I fucking loved it! Yes, you're cheering right now, Jack. You're cheering. Raging Bull is an amazing movie. It really is. I was completely captivated by this film. It is fantastic. I mean, what helps is that it's only 2 hours long. It doesn't drag on for 3 hours. You know, we don't need to see a very detailed account of his life. You see the main important bits. And I like that. The movie doesn't feel like it has to pad itself out, you know. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I think the best thing to say going into this movie is that you have to be optimistic and look at it from this point of view. The character is not meant to be likable. Jake LaMotta, he's a prick. He was an absolute arsehole. He's not meant to be liked. But, you know, so you have to be aware of that convention when you go in to see this movie. If you haven't seen it yet, you have to be aware that that is what he is like. And you're not meant to like him. And I didn't like him, of course. He's an absolute arsehole. But Robert De Niro absolutely nails it. He brought such a great ferocity to the character. It was so... He gave such an emotional performance. It was so angry yet contained, yet it was so various. He gave such range with his performance. I mean, there are moments that genuinely shocked me in his performance. I mean, the way that the character treats the people around him, like the way he treats his brother, played by Joe Pesci, who is also very good. The way he treats his wife, Vicky, who's very good too. Even though he did obviously have a wife in the beginning, but then we don't really see her very much. That would be my only criticism about the movie. We don't know what happens to his previous wife. I assume, obviously, that they divorced because he marries Vicky and has children with her. But, yeah, we never found out what happened to the first wife, so I guess I'll have to research that. From a filmmaking standpoint, it's great. And I really admire the decision to present this in black and white. I think it gives such a rawness to this movie. They've tried to make it feel like a kind of a classic Hollywood film, and the fact, I mean, it was released in 1980, so it's not an old film. It's not a very old film. It's about 37 years old. Well, I guess it is kind of old, but it still looks pretty current. I mean, compared to some films, but it's not like old, if that makes sense. I really liked seeing the journey of Jake and how he falls from grace. I mean, literally from the beginning, we learn that he's an absolute bastard, he's an absolute prick, and his life goes from bad to worse. It is a very steady decline. And he's abusive, he's violent, he's just horrible. And it's sad that in life we get people like this. But he's obviously learned the error of his ways now. I believe the film was based on a book. He'd written an autobiography or something or whatever. So Martin Scorsese obviously did his research into that. And Scorsese's direction is fantastic. I think all the boxing scenes are done really well. The fact that they're not prolonged as well really helps because, you know, we've been to a boxing match. We know what it's about. You don't need to drag it out. So they do it quick, you know, bam, then they're over, cut away. You know, keeps focus on the story. So, good job there. You don't need to show too much of the fights. And the fights are done very well. They're done very real. I mean, you feel the pain. You go, ooh, like the blood just oozes out. And particularly in his final fight, you see that he has essentially just given up. He slowly, he slowly starts to give up on the life that he's living and retire. And he starts to become a bit of a showman. And it's interesting also how they address the issues regarding his weight. How, like, they're telling him to stay in shape, but he eats a bit like a pig. I mean, you know, and he gets very paranoid. I mean, you really do wonder. I mean, he's psychologically, you know, emotionally self-destructive. He has a destructive personality, and that really affects everybody around him. His brother doesn't want anything more to do with him. He then accuses his brother of sleeping with his wife, which of course is true. Though his wife slept around with a lot of people because she was so tired of him. And, you know, I mean, who could blame her, to be honest? But, so yeah, you really start to see the downfall of his life and how he is completely brought it on himself. And it is a clear example of how we, as people, shouldn't behave. You know, the arrogance, the cockiness that oozes from him is just self-destructive. And that is what is most compelling about this. And there are legitimately intense scenes. The scene when he goes into his brother's house and he starts beating him up. He says, "Oh, you fucked my wife, you fucked my wife." And then his wife is behind him. And then he actually punches his wife in the face. Like, this guy is just a nutter. I mean, I'm sure now, I don't know if he's still around or not. I don't really research into boxing, but I am sure now he's a nice guy. He has learnt from his ways, and I'm sure that, you know, he looked back at what he did and he realised where he went wrong. But I mean, wow! Robert De Niro. He makes it feel so real. I mean, Robert De Niro is a fantastic actor, and this is definitely one of his best performances, if not the best. I believe he won an Oscar, if I'm correct. It's a very good movie. I mean, there's just nothing else like it. It's just great. The first hour does sort of basically build up everything, but I like that we get to know who he is, and, you know, the fact that, you know, he's very close to his brother at first. His brother is his manager. He has a bit of a horrible relationship with his first wife. Then he meets Vicky, falls in love, and marries her. I believe that, you know, in this movie, what we get is obviously the bad side to him. I believe deep down somewhere in this movie, like, the character believes he is a nice guy, and they all believe he can be a nice guy, but they're just trying to work with the toxicness of his alter ego, of his ego. And yeah, that's it, his ego. He has a massive ego, and this is another great message of this movie, is that we shouldn't let our egos overtake us. And, you know, because it can hurt people physically, emotionally, verbally. You know, it's a very strong story, and the fact that this is sort of, well, based on a true story is all the more potent then. But yeah, this is a very, very good film. I like the way it's shot. I think it's very well done. The cinematography is fantastic. I like the opening credits as well, what we see him in the ring and he's doing this, and then we see the titles come up. The music is nice. The music theme is good. It's almost tragic. It's almost sad. It's just, it sets you up completely for the story, and, you know, the fact that there is no redeeming this guy. He is irredeemable, and I think that is the clear distinction with his character. Excuse me. That is the clear distinction with his character, is that he is irredeemable. There is nothing that can save this guy, and, you know, he's just a bad person. He doesn't mean to be, but the way he is just toxic. And I thought the ending was very well done. The fact that he'd kind of, and his speech was very moving. The fact that he'd lost everything, but he was still able to kind of essentially salvage what was left of his life and move on. So I liked the transitions through his life, seeing the different years of his life. Him going from a young man to an older man, and obviously his weight changes quite a bit. And There's one particular scene which I really like when he ends up in prison and he just completely, he goes into this emotional outburst and he starts punching the wall and kicking and screaming, going, ah, this is so fucking stupid, ah. And I mean, it's powerful stuff, really powerful stuff. The emotional tension is at an all-time high here. I want to thank Jack McCullough for recommending this film to me, because I'm really glad I saw it. It was a very interesting film, and it's interesting sometimes seeing these biographical accounts of one particular person. You know, I saw recently Detroit, which isn't based on one person, but it's based on the incident in the motel in 1967 in Detroit when the riots were going on. This was during a very racist time. So it really does make you think back to then and to now, and how society has really changed. So, I mean, there's not much else I can say about this movie. I think it does what it sets out to do. I don't have any problems with it as such, other than the issue with his first wife. Like, if anybody knows actually what happened to his first wife, I would like to find that out. Yeah, to any aspiring boxers, this is not how you behave. And I'm not surprised that the movie won 2 Oscars, because it is just stunning. It's gripping from start to finish, and it's intense, and you just feel the personality of anger, you know, oozing off of this guy, and the fact that, you know, he's irredeemable as well. You just thank your lucky stars that there are some people who are not like that. But anyway, I think this movie's fantastic. I would probably go so far as to call it a masterpiece. So, yeah, and I'm going to rate Raging Bull a 10 out of 10. Yes, it was fantastic. So, I want to thank Jack for recommending this film to me. I am now going to be reviewing the Thor trilogy in preparation for Thor Ragnarok. I will be reviewing Thor the Dark World, and of course Thor Ragnarok. And I may consider reviewing some other movies as well. So, thank you guys all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. Tyler's 11. See ya.